June 19th, 1977. The air inside Market Square Arena, Indianapolis, was thick enough to touch. 20,000 people filled the seats, waiting for Elvis Presley to appear, not knowing this would be the final night of his life on stage. Backstage, Elvis sat before a large mirror. The light glimmered against his face, tired, but strangely serene. Normally, he would joke with his friends, laugh before the show began. But tonight was different. Joe Esposito, his closest friend and tour manager, looked at him through the mirror. "You okay, Elvis?" Elvis smiled faintly. "I'm fine, Joe. Tonight's gonna be special." Joe chuckled. "Every night's special for your fans." Elvis shook his head softly. "No, Joe, tonight is different." In the corner, Dr. George Nichopoulos watched quietly. He knew Elvis's health had been failing: heart troubles, prescription dependency, depression. Yet tonight, the man before him looked peaceful. Too peaceful. "Elvis, how are you feeling?" the doctor asked. "Peaceful, Doc. For the first time in a long time, I truly feel at peace." That answer chilled the doctor. He had seen this kind of peace before, in people ready to leave the world behind. Nearby, Charlie Hodge, Elvis's longtime guitarist and friend, checked the set list one more time. Elvis approached. "Charlie, I'm making a few changes tonight." "What kind of changes?" "I'll sing some songs differently. Just follow along." Charlie nodded. Puz led. Elvis never changed things at the last minute. 9 p.m. The lights dimmed. The crowd erupted. Elvis stepped on stage in his golden jumpsuit. Each step slow, deliberate, heavy with meaning. "Good evening, Indianapolis," he said into the mic. And the room exploded in cheers. The opening number, "See, Rider," began. But tonight, Elvis sang it differently. Every word carried weight, emotion, truth, as if he were pouring his soul into every line. The first half went as usual: Heartbreak Hotel, All Shook Up, Don't Be Cruel. Yet, backstage, his friends felt something strange. "Joe," Charlie whispered, "he's different tonight." "I see it too," Joe replied. "It's like he's saying goodbye." Then, during Love Me Tender, Elvis stopped mid-song, something he almost never did. "This song is special to me," he said softly, "because it's about love. And love. Love is the most important thing in life." The crowd applauded, unaware that each word carried a secret farewell. Those backstage stood still. They didn't know it yet, but Elvis Presley, the king, was quietly beginning to say goodbye to the world. After Love Me Tender, something in the air shifted. The fans were still cheering, but those who truly knew Elvis could sense it: a quiet sorrow beneath the spotlight. When the orchestra began My Way, Elvis closed his eyes. That song had always been his anthem: proud, defiant, unbroken. But tonight, he sang it differently. Instead of, "And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain," he sang, "And now I see it clear, and so I face what I've been certain." His voice cracked, slightly heavy, trembling, almost pleading. Most of the crowd didn't notice, but Joe Esposito froze. He remembered 2 years earlier, in 1975. Elvis had whispered over a glass of whiskey, "Joe, one day I'll tell everything, all the truths, And when that day comes, I'll do it through music. Through music, Joe asked. Elvis nodded. Because music can say what words never can. And that night, Elvis was keeping that promise. He wasn't performing My Way, he was confessing. Then came Can't Help Falling in Love, a song that had followed him through decades of fame and loneliness. Originally, Take My Hand, Take My Whole Life Too. But Elvis changed it to Take My Heart, Take My Whole Truth Too. Whole truth, Charlie Hodge whispered. His hand trembled on the guitar. Joe felt a chill run through him. That phrase, whole truth, meant something deep. He remembered another night. Also, in 1975, Elvis, half drunk, staring at the floor. Joe, he'd said, I've deceived everyone. I've lived as someone I never truly was. And one day, I'll want to be free of it. Joe had asked quietly. Free of what? Elvis's answer came with a sad smile. Everyone thinks I'm the king, but I'm just a man. A scared, lonely man. And now, on that stage, he was finally that man, not the icon, not the legend, but a fragile soul shedding his last layer of armor. As the show neared its end, the lights dimmed softly. Elvis sat at the piano. The crowd fell silent. The opening notes of Unchained Melody echoed through the arena, his favorite in those final years. At first, he sang as written, Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch. A long, lonely time. But when he reached, time goes by so slowly. And time can do so much. Are you still mine? He stopped. He looked out at the sea of faces, his eyes glistening under the spotlight. And then, with a trembling voice, he added new lines. I need your love. I need your love. Godspeed your love to where I'll be, where I'll be, where I will be. No one had ever heard those words before. They weren't part of the song, but they were his goodbye. As he sang the final verses, Elvis looked straight into the camera, into the eyes of millions who would one day watch this recording. Will you still be mine when I'm no longer here? The arena went completely silent. Joe Esposito's eyes filled with tears. Dr. Nichopoulos stared at the stage, frozen. And in that silence, they all understood Elvis wasn't just performing. He was saying farewell to life itself. When the final note faded, Elvis rested his hands on the piano, whispered softly, I love you all, but I'm going home now, to where I belong. Most of the audience never heard it, but those backstage did. And in that moment, they realized the truth. Elvis Presley had just said his last goodbye. When the final lights dimmed, Elvis remained seated at the piano. His hands trembled slightly, but there was a calm smile on his lips, the kind that only comes when someone has finally laid down the burden they've carried all their life. Then, slowly, he stood, lifted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. My friends, he began softly, his voice fragile and human. Tonight, you've given me a very special gift, the gift of love. And I want to thank you, not just for tonight, but for all these years. There was no trace of the king's grandeur in his tone, just a man speaking from his heart. He paused, scanning the crowd, his eyes glistening. Music became my life, he continued, but the real beauty was being able to share it with you. And if one day I'm not here anymore, remember the music, because music lives forever. The arena fell silent, as if time itself had stopped. Then he whispered his final words, thank you very much, I love you. Take care of yourselves. He placed a hand over his heart, bowed, then kissed both hands and sent them toward the audience. That was the last gesture Elvis Presley ever made on stage. Backstage, no one spoke. The silence was sacred. Joe Esposito entered the dressing room quietly. Elvis was sitting before the mirror, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Elvis, you okay?" Joe asked softly. Elvis lifted his head, eyes calm and clear. "I'm fine, Joe. For the first time in a long time, I'm really fine." Joe sat across from him. "What do you mean?" Elvis exhaled deeply. "Tonight, I got to be myself. Not the icon, not the image they built. Just me, a simple man." Dr. Nichopoulos entered with his medical bag, but Elvis waved him off. "No medicine tonight, Doc. No pills. Nothing. I just want to be me." Then he turned to his friends. "Thank you for standing by me all these years. Whatever happens next, remember me. You're my family, and family always remembers." Joe would later say that night, Elvis spoke more than he had in years. He laughed. He cried. He apologized. At one point, he simply stared out the window, the lights of Indianapolis flickering against the night sky. "What are you thinking about?" Elvis Charlie asked quietly. Elvis smiled faintly. "I'm wondering how people will remember me. I just hope they don't only remember the king. I hope they remember the man." 58 days later, August 16th, 1977, Elvis Presley passed away. But that night in Indianapolis, he had already said his goodbye through music. Not with applause, but with peace. In the years that followed, people replayed the recordings from that final concert. Every lyric he changed, every word he added, carried the same message. "I wasn't a king. I was a human being just like you." Joe Esposito would say years later, "That night, Elvis gave us his greatest gift. He showed us his true self. And it was more beautiful than any song." Charlie Hodge said, "What happened on stage that night wasn't a concert. It was a dialogue between one soul and 20,000 others." And Dr. Nichopoulos reflected, "I can't explain it medically, but Elvis knew he was going to die, and he was at peace with it." Those final recordings remain treasures to this day, because in them, there's no legend, no crown, no king. There's only Elvis, raw, fragile, and radiant in his honesty. And perhaps that was his greatest performance, because that night, he didn't perform, he simply was. And in that honesty, the world saw something far greater than fame. They saw the heart of a man, stronger than music itself.